Today we're learning about habitats and environments. So what's a habitat and what is an environment? Well, they're very similar, but if you think of a habitat as the place where something lives, such as a bird lives within a tree and builds its nest within a tree, so that tree provides its shelter, that's a habitat, and then the environment is that tree is within a bigger area. So the tree lives within the forest or the bushland or even a park, and that's the environment. So a habitat is where an animal lives and can find all the things it needs to survive. So let's look at some environments. We have rainforest, woodland, desert, grasslands, ocean, and Arctic areas. These are the main environments we find in the world. If we have a look at this map here, this is a map of the world that shows most of the countries and all of the continents. If you look closely, you can see that some parts are yellowy and orange. They're the desert areas. The green parts are the woodland and grassland. And the white parts that are at the top and the bottom, they're the Arctic areas. Now, the top one, which is the north, is called the North Pole or the Arctic. And the one that's at the bottom is in the south. That's called the Antarctic or the South Pole. And of course, the blue area is the ocean. So let's look at some of the environments. So in the rainforest, this is a rainforest. The rainforest is a lot of trees, they're very tall, there's a lot of leaves and bushes, it's warm and it's moist. Now the animals that like to make this its habitat are animals like this lizard and the bird and this tree kangaroo. Now they like to make this environment its habitat because they can get insects and they can find shelter amongst the leaves. Then this is a cassowary. It likes to be on the ground of a rainforest because there's lots of protection down there. It can build its nest down there and it can find plenty of insects to eat. So they're the reasons why these type of animals like a rainforest. Now here's a woodland. A woodland is different from the rainforest because it's more open and more sun can get into the floor, so it's drier, and the type of animals that would like to live here are a wombat and a koala and bird life like this kookaburra. Now the wombat likes to eat the grass, the koala would be up high in the trees eating the eucalyptus leaves, so both of them have protection from this type of area. Wombat would burrow and the koala climbs high, and the birds fly around and get all the insects. And this echidna here too would also like to walk around on the floor getting all the insects. So that's the reason why these type of animals prefer the woodland as their habitat. Now a desert is dry and sandy, but there are some small shrubs and grasses. Now within those small shrubs and grasses that you'll find animals like this bilby that like to hide under the shrubs and burrow under and eat the insects. The dingo at the top there would eat small animals like the bilby. Then the kangaroo eats from the shrubs. It gets most of its moisture from what it eats. It doesn't need to have much access to actual running water. And then lizards that also like the heat and getting into the bushes to eat the little insects. So that's why these type of animals choose to live in a desert. Now here's a grassland. Some people will call this savanna. Now grasslands have a lot of grass, of course, and low shrubs and low trees. And there's usually or often some water within this area. So animals that like to live here are lizards again, like this frillneck lizard that would be catching all the insects that are around. Emus like to have the wide open spaces where they can run and run away from predators, and they also eat the grasses. And then you've got birds who would be in the lower trees. They can make their nest there and have access to all the insects. And then this is a termite mound that comes in lots of different environments, but termites are insects that all of these animals would also eat. So there's the type of things that make a habitat in the grasslands. Now here's an ocean, and you can see that the ocean here, you can see just under that there's coral and plant life. So there's a lot of space in the ocean to swim around, but there's also places like the coral reefs where animals can get protection. So this turtle likes to swim around in the ocean. It feeds off things that live in the ocean, but also goes out onto the beaches to lay its eggs. But manta rays spend their whole time in the ocean, and they feed off small things that they can find on the bottom of the ocean. And fish like to hide amongst the coral and the seaweed and kelp. They get protection from the bigger fish, but they also feed off smaller fish. And here's an octopus. It also spends a lot of time in coral reefs, so it can hide from bigger animals, but it can also find its food there. So that's why these animals like to live in the ocean. And then you've got birds like this albatross that float on the ocean. They spend a lot of time on top of the ocean, and then they dive down and catch fish, but they will go back to land to build their nest. Okay, and this is an Arctic area. Arctic areas are frozen. They're very cold, lots of ice, lots of snow. There's not many plants there. So the type of animals that like to live there are penguins, polar bears and seals. They spend a lot of time living on the land, but dive into the water to catch fish to eat. And then you've got animals like this orca that likes the cold waters to catch seals and penguins. That's why it likes to live in the Arctic. Right, so let's just go over. We've got rainforest, woodland, desert, grasslands, ocean, and Arctic areas. So far we haven't talked about where humans live. Well, humans can adapt to just about anything. So that's why we live in just about anywhere. So we can live in the rainforest or the woodland. We can adapt for desert by building ourselves a house or hats to keep ourselves sheltered from the sun. Same with the Arctic. We can put clothes on or build shelters so that we can adapt to living in really cold areas as well. And there are a lot of people around the world who spend a lot of time on the ocean fishing. So while we don't make our home usually in the water, there's a lot of humans around the world who would spend a lot of time fishing and on the water, making their lives from the water. So humans can live just about anywhere. But in Sydney, most people live in urban or suburban areas. So you might recognize this picture here. An urban area is where there's lots of tall buildings, so more like in the city. And suburban areas are where there's shorter buildings like houses. And Wentworthville is a suburban area. Okay, now I'd like you to add to your vocabulary. So go to your vocabulary page and you can be writing down habitat. We've learned about habitats today, environment, rainforest, woodland, desert, grasslands, ocean, Arctic, urban, and suburban. And your activity today is to look at these two animals that are there. And I would like you to draw them, name them, and draw them in their habitat or environment, and then take a video of yourself talking about why they need to live in that environment. Or you could write about why they need to live in that environment. Because remember, animals choose, or they don't really choose, they live in a certain environment because that's what they need. So they find the things that they need there. Okay, thank you.